Good evening. Welcome to the June 20th, 2024 meeting of the Planning Commission of the City of Calabasas. Looks like we have a full complement of commissioners here. So let's see. Hardest decision of the night.
I'll be happy to lead the pledge.
Well, thank you,
you want.
Commissioner Washburn. Please do.
Please stand. And we're in between Memorial Day and Juneteenth yesterday and July 4th. And it's in a great country, so let's salute the flag of that great country. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for volunteering. All right, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. Announcements and introductions. Do we have anything down this way? Nope. And this way? Nope. Okay.
Well,
That-
I have one thing.
Okay.
I can't pass up an opportunity to promote the city. If you'll look at any of the things on the website or on the plaques and, what do they call them? Backboards. There's one, in fact, in the patio here between City Hall and the library. It lists all the special functions of entertainment. Like tonight at the community center, there was a teen night from 6 to 9, free, and entertainment, and there will be something like that every week in one or other of many venues in town. So take a look at that website to see what the schedule looks like, and enjoy yourself.
Thank you. Okay, now we are on to oral communications, public comment. This is the portion of the program where anyone wishing to address the commission on matters that are not on the agenda. We don't have anyone? Okay. Thank you. Then on to consent items. Approval of the minutes of June 6th, 2024. Do we have any corrections or a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you. Okay. On to adoption of Resolution 2024-790, approving file number SPR-2024-002, consistent with the Planning Commission direction on June 6th.
I'll put the motion on the floor to move approval of the resolution to approve the project or recommend approval of the project to the City Council.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, then we move this on to the council. Next is public hearing item, file number SPR 2023-006.
Actually, Chair, if I can interrupt for 1 second, sorry.
Yes.
Resolution 2024-790 was for the actual approval of the project, not recommendation to council.
Then that's what my motion is then. You want to revote?
And that's what I'll re-second.
All right, let's just to make sure that we've got it consistent, we have the new motion, which is a recommendation for approval.
No, to
No,
actually.
I'm
approve it.
sorry, for
We
approval of,
So I move approval.
moving too fast.
And it was seconded by Mike.
Approval, and we have a second.
Yes.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the resolution is
Thank you for catching
approved.
that.
Thank you, Michael. All right, now we are moving on to public hearing item file SPR 2023-006, request for a site plan review for the construction of a 1,239 square foot addition to the existing two-story residence located at 22611 Federalist Road within the residential single-family residence zoning district. And do we have a presentation? Okay. All right, whenever you're ready.
Apologies. Give me 1 second as I work out the technical difficulties.
I was moving kind of fast, so I snuck up on you. No worries.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Apologies for the technical difficulties here as we got that started. You may have noticed on the staff report, Jacqueline Rackerby was the case planner, and so I am filling in for her tonight to present this project to you all. And so, here, can they see that? Okay, perfect. All right, first, I want to mention that the project was noticed to all property owners within 500 feet of the subject site. The notice was also posted on the city's website and throughout the city at all the required locations. Staff did receive one question from a neighboring resident asking what the scope of the project was. Once described that scope, they didn't have any further questions or objections. Besides that, there were no other comments that were received in totality, and there were no objections to the project that were expressed. So the project site, as you can see here, is located north of Mulholland Highway within the residential single-family zoning district and within the greater Mulwood community. The site is surrounded to the north, south, east, and west by other single-family residences. So this slide here shows a close-up view of the existing site. You can see the roof outline of the main residence, the balcony at the rear of the house. There is a detached trellis in the rear yard that is unpermitted, and so as part of this project, it will be demolished as part of this project. There's also accessory features such as a pool, hardscape, and landscape that you can sort of see here in the overhead. So there's a couple photos of the site here. The first photo shows the existing residence as viewed from the street, looking north. The second photo shows the front entryway, and the last photo shows the rear of the residence. The main area of work is above the garage and at the existing front entryway area, shown more in that middle photo there. So as mentioned in the project description, the proposal includes the construction of the additions totaling 1,239 square feet. That is 332 square feet to the first floor and 900 square feet to the second floor. And as I move to the floor plans, I'll show that in a bit more detail. So why are we here today? The Calabasas Municipal Code requires this project to be reviewed by the Planning Commission because the proposed addition totals more than 1,200 square feet. So here's the proposed site plan that has been cropped for readability to show the area of work. There is no work that is being proposed in the area towards the rear property line. You can see in blue the first floor addition that is 332 square feet proposed. And then you can see the second floor addition, the 907 square feet, that is shown in yellow. And then there's not the dark green shade, but you can see sort of that shading that's kind of in between on the far east side there. That is basically showing the area of the two-story addition at the front entryway. That dark green color is existing hardscape landscape that is remaining. And so to mention, the existing residence is currently legal non-conforming in regards to front and east side setbacks due to the fact that the residence was constructed in 1969 prior to the city's incorporation. However, the additions are proposed to comply with all present-day development standards, including setbacks, height, site coverage, pervious surfaces. The pervious surface coverage percentage will remain the same at 51%. Slightly above the 50% requirement. The addition is within areas that have already been hardscaped, and the site coverage percentage is actually being reduced. The addition, since it's over the existing garage and within that front entryway, of course, is mostly a roofed area. And so the project also involves reducing the size of that balcony at the rear end of the house and replacing it with an open trellis, So that will decrease the site coverage from 26 to 25%. So just a small decrease there. So this is the proposed first floor plan. You can see shaded in blue the areas of the addition. You can see the 295 square foot entry hall that is currently occupied by the front porch area. And then to the west here, you can see that 37 square foot pantry that's proposed at the side yard that is currently aligned with an existing garage. Both of these additions are primarily within the existing roofed area of the site as mentioned. There are also two new attached trellises that are both proposed, one at the front of the residence and then one at the rear of the residence. That would basically replace the balcony that currently exists in the rear yard, and that was shown in the photographs earlier. On the second floor plan, you can see the size of the addition to the second floor of 907 square feet, located over the existing garage and over the proposed new entry hall area. The second floor is also set back about 5 feet from the garage face below, with a balcony at the front of the residence. This slide shows the front and rear elevations. The additions are shaded in gray for visual perspective. All colors and materials are proposed to match the existing residence. At the front here, the south elevation, you can see the proposed new entry trellis. The balcony trim and eaves will help add some articulation and break up the massing of the proposed addition. And at the rear elevation, you can also see the new trellis and reduced balcony area. On the side elevations, you can see that the second floor above the garage is set back a few feet, as mentioned on the floor plan, again to help with breaking up that massing at the front of the house. So the ARP did review this project on May 24th. They found that the proposed project is compatible with the aesthetics of the surrounding neighborhood and recommended approval of the project to the Planning Commission as proposed, and they didn't have any individual comments that they carried to the Planning Commission. Also to mention, the subject site is not within a designated scenic corridor. As far as home size comparisons go, this information comes from the home comparison table within the technical appendix of the staff report. This looks at homes within that 300-foot radius of the subject site. The data comes from the LA County Assessor, does not include garages, and that also includes that 300-foot radius that is sent out for public noticing. And so home sizes in the vicinity to range from about 2,018 square feet at the smallest to 4,009 square feet as the largest home within that 300 square foot radius. Lot sizes range from approximately 8,646 square feet to about 22,765 square feet. The average home size is around 2,685 square feet. The average lot size about 11,451 square feet. So the proposed project, the residence is proposing to be 4,087 square feet in total, and the lot size is 10,690 square feet. The surrounding homes are both a mix of 1- and 2-story homes in the surrounding neighborhood. So listed here are the 6 required findings for a site plan review per section 17.62.0020 of the Calabasas Municipal Code. The applicant's proposed findings for the site plan review are included in the packets as Exhibit B. And so with that, the proposed project will not alter the existing single-family residential use of the subject site, which is an allowed use in the RS zoning district. Staff found that there is compliance with the applicable development standards that is documented within the written staff report. The existing residence is legal non-conforming in regards to some setbacks. However, the proposed additions will comply with the city's development standards. As mentioned in the previous slide, homes in the neighborhood range in size from 2,018 square feet to 4,009 square feet, And the proposed addition, the residence will be, it's proposed to be 4,087 square feet. And the ARP also recommended approval of project. And lastly, the project is exempt from secret review pursuant to section 15061, the general rule exemption, and 15301, existing facilities. And so with that, staff is prepared to assist the commission in developing the findings for approval or denial as required. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Before I open the public hearing, are there any questions of staff?
I have one.
Okay, go ahead.
I wonder if you could confirm that on the area, home, and lot size comparisons, there's only a couple or three or four from Federalist, which is the street that the subject property is on. And there's a home at 22617 Federalist, which is pretty large, it's 3260 square feet, about the same size lot. Is that the next door neighbor?
Apologies, that's correct. The next door neighbor, that is that home right there.
So if you're facing the subject property, it's to the right.
Yeah, and there is a slide that I have. Give me 1 second. This is a slide here we had in case there was any questions, but this is the home next door to the left of the subject site. And so it actually kind of gives you a good illustrative example of what that addition would look like, just because that home has that portion of the residence above the garage, similar to what the subject site is proposing to do.
Okay, so if you look at on page 3 of the presentation, the aerial photograph of this subject property,
It's to the left. 22617 is the property to the left of
the
that.
3,000 and change property?
Yes.
Okay, so that presumably was expanded at some point in time.
Correct.
I don't recall it, but probably was.
Well, I think the, Joel showed us that you can tell the roof line is different. It's been added on over the
Yeah.
garage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And then the other one to the right, the tile roof one, looks like a pretty big home too. I don't think that's on your list, but just from the aerial, it looks pretty substantial.
And so
I guess the reason for the questions is it shows that even though this is going to be the largest home on the street and really one of the largest homes in the neighborhood, it's reasonably consistent with its neighbor and with other homes in the general vicinity. Bigger, but
Yeah, these are good.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Commissioner Mueller. And I also pulled up a slide right here that I had prepared in case there were any questions. And so I did look at some homes outside of the 300 feet area just to give some perspective in the greater Mulwood area. And so as you can see here, within 500 square feet, there was one home that was 4,332 square feet. And then within 800 feet of that residence, there were also a few other homes that were slightly larger as well, just to give some perspective.
thank you.
All right, that's it. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to open the public hearing. I have one speaker card for Oren Dothan, agent of the homeowner. Are you here to make a presentation or to answer questions? Okay. Do we have any questions?
Oh,
I have one, and that at the beginning of your presentation, you talked about something being demolished, not just the structural changes necessary to deal with the addition, but there was something about an illegal or an inappropriate or a pre-existing non-conforming structure on the property. Which element is that in my drawing, sir?
Thank you, Commissioner Washburn. So that is a patio in the rear yard. And so that is proposed to be demolished, and in place would be an open trellis is being proposed.
So it's basically replacement of concrete? Is that what we're talking about? You say patio. Or a patio cover, I didn't hear.
I'll defer
patio
to
cover.
the applicant if you wanted to, if you could please describe.
I think it's like a covered,
It's
It's
a
like a
patio,
balcony.
it looks like a
Okay.
patio cover.
Yeah.
If I may
that's-
respond, there's a non-conforming
I'm sorry,
trellis.
I'm going to stop you for just one moment, I'm sorry. Can you just give us your name and city of residence, please?
My name is Oren Dothan. I'm from Los Angeles,
Thank you.
and I'm the architect for the project. So just to respond to your question, there is a non-conforming trellis that is beyond the side yard setback, and that trellis is going to be demolished in the new proposed scheme.
Is that demolished and replaced, or is
No,
it
removed.
demolished and changed?
Removed completely. It's a non-conforming structure.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need.
While we have you,
Yes.
Don't run
may I
away.
ask a question?
Absolutely.
On page A6.1, which is the photographs, it's the last page of the packet.
Yep.
Can you just describe a little bit, so the balcony that we see really across most of the property, and then there's that kind of iron fencing? That's being changed?
Correct. That's being reduced. About half of it is being demolished, and half of it will remain as a balcony, and the extension of the balcony would be a trellis in the back.
And that's a trellis meaning
Open wood trellis.
Open wood trellis. And what is the material for the,
The solid balcony,
yes,
that would remain as existing. So it's stucco faced with wood columns, and it has a tiled floor.
no, I'm sorry, the fencing around the balcony.
The fencing around the balcony is
Fencing's
wrought
the wrong
iron.
word. What am I looking for?
With the second story, the railing.
Second story railing.
The guardrail,
Wrought
yeah.
iron.
And so what is that
But I
going to
think
be,
it's
is that
coming
going to, that's coming out entirely?
You're correct. That's
And
going to
then-
be replaced with something more attractive made out of wrought iron.
Okay, for the portion of the balcony that's left?
Correct.
Got it. Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, do we have any other questions of Mr. Dothan? Yes,
Yeah,
please.
I have a couple.
Commissioner
I'm
Harris.
sorry. As I mentioned earlier, I have to ask publicly, but it's on slide 7, but page A 2.1. And I like what you've done here to reorganize the access to the bedroom downstairs, because before it looks like the entrance was through the garage, through a mudroom, and you've changed it. I mean, it makes much more sense. But what I don't quite understand is where it says guest closet. Is the guest closet just the left part of that entry to the guest bedroom? Or is that whole thing like a vestibule, like an entry, or?
That room is a vestibule in essence, and it has cabinetry doors that are a closet.
Got it. Okay.
So it's sort of a vestibule that transition through into the
Right, because it just said closet, and that didn't make sense to me. Before you walk through a mudroom, and now I didn't think you should walk through a closet. On this next page, which is slide 8, there's another kind of entry or vestibule, I think, in the middle there between the master closet and then the bath to the bedroom to the right. When you don't walk directly into the master bedroom, there's like a room with 2 doors, and I don't know what that other thing is, if that's a piece of furniture or.
correct furniture.
So what is that room?
That room is a hallway that leads into the bedroom. So the area that you see in hatched is the new area, and the area that you see unhatched is the existing, and that whole master bedroom wing is existing. And therefore, it has this sort of maybe somewhat untraditional entrance to the room, but it's the compromise of trying to organize, planning an existing house.
Oh, no, I get it. But it's just odd because it has doors on both ends. It's like a separate little room before you get to the master bedroom, but I guess you can double lock it or something. Anyway, thank you very much. This is well done.
Sure, thank you.
All right, do we have any other questions? Commissioner Leah?
Yes, not for the gentleman, for staff and for the architectural review panel.
Okay,
Well, they're not here.
hang on for 1 second. If we have no further questions for Mr. Dothan, let's take care of the public hearing first, if you don't
Yeah.
mind, and then we'll come back to you, Commissioner Leah.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with these plans at all. I did notice that you didn't pledge allegiance to the flag, you didn't put the hand over the heart. I know the words are not repeated often for most people, but just a suggestion next time, you have the opportunity. Pop that hand over that heart.
I wasn't sure what's happening, you know, I'm not, you know, usually
I
a
understand.
public commission, so I was a little confused of what's going on, so I apologize.
I understand. We do it every other week. It's just when
Okay.
you have the opportunity, I just encourage
I'll
you
know
to-
better next time.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. That's it. I'm going to close the public hearing. Yeah, thank you very much. Commissioner Leah?
Yes, I have a question. How do you measure scale? Because if there's a project that doesn't look like it's the scale, meets scale, this is certainly one of them. The architectural review panel was silent on it, and staff says it meets scale. And I'm wondering, how do you measure it? This property dwarfs everything around it, except one.
Well, scale in general is relatively subjective. One option is to look at an objective measurement. So a typical way of looking at that is looking at a floor area ratio. However, we don't have a floor area ratio requirement for the residential single-family zoning district. Other than that, usually what we'll do is, we're looking at whether or not it meets the development envelope. So the municipal code establishes for the residential single-family zoning district specific setbacks, site coverage, pervious surface requirements. All of those combined help create an envelope. Beyond that, which those are objective measurements, then the question of scale is really a subjective question for the commission to answer. Staff has not opined on it. The ARP is tasked with looking at the project, looking at the architecture and compatibility with the neighborhood. So if the ARP recommends approval of the project in terms of design, one of the things that they do take into consideration is how that project fits in with the rest of the neighborhood. So the commission could rely on the recommendation from the ARP that the project is within scale within the rest of the neighborhood. Mr. Hayes also brought up other homes in the neighborhood that are roughly the same size. So those are all components that the commission could look at to make a determination of scale, but at this point, staff hasn't opined on that.
Well, the ARP is supposed to look at scale. Very specifically states that they are supposed to look at scale, yet they're silent on it. And I would like to know how they evaluate that it does comply or it doesn't comply. There has to be some way that we can measure that.
When the ARP reviews these projects, staff makes clear to the ARP members as well as the applicant what the different components that the ARP is tasked at looking at. Neighborhood compatibility is one of those. So again, if the commission wants to use the ARP's recommendation as a basis or find another basis within the facts in front of you, you can. But neighborhood compatibility is a key component of what the ARP looks like or what they look at, and that could be directly related to overall scale.
They should speak to it then. They should give an opinion that they think it does or does not. Failure to give such an opinion doesn't answer the question.
All right. Do we have anything else? Any other comments, or do we have a motion?
I would move to approve this, but I would like to make some comments too.
Related to this matter?
Yeah, because I think what Commissioner Lee is talking about is important. It is a finding that has to be made, but I see no problem making that finding because the architect has incorporated a lot of setbacks and other devices to reduce the impact of the size of this. I
Agreed.
think this is a really well-done job.
Thank you. Okay.
You need a
Do we have a
second.
second? Is there a second? I'll second that. Thank you. Any further discussion? All right.
Yeah, I have a discussion, I guess, a question. We're seeing this because the project is more than 1,200 square foot addition, correct?
Yes.
Barely, I think it's.
Yes, I noticed that.
So I'm wondering if it's less than 1,200, it goes through development director approval?
There's two different thresholds. The first, one of them is, I think, 20%. So if it's over 20% of the existing, that would also trigger a site plan review. And then the 1,200 square foot. So it's the lower of either of those. I don't know off the
Okay.
top of my head if this would have exceeded that 20% threshold.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that several commissioners over the years have really asked the same question that Commissioner Leah has pointed out, which is this, how do you define scale and all of that? And I'm wondering if the fact that we don't see anything under 1,200 sort of suggests that 1,200 is kind of, it's a little bit of evidence that 1,200 is kind of a no-brainer. And maybe a little bit more falls within the same scaling. I'm trying to put some meat on the bones of what Commissioner Lee is concerned about, as I am, and I know Commissioner Harrison is too. And how do you define it? And you look at houses in the neighborhood, and how far away do you look? Is 800 feet? I know there's limits of what gets noticed. It's hard, and I guess it kind of goes to the issue of, generally speaking, mansionization issues. And also what Commissioner Harrison has just pointed out is when it seems to be within the scale, how is that increase mitigated to some extent? So these are all, I think, very important questions, and I've always wondered about whether the city ought to kind of look at generally the question of scale and increasing, because we're here all the time. I mean, this is what we mostly see, are significant additions.
Or new homes even.
Or new homes even, correct, right. I mean, it just seems like everybody wants to take our traditional 2,500 square foot home and make it 4,000, or take our traditional 10,000 square foot home and make it 15,000, right? I mean, that's what we see all the time, and yet there isn't a lot of definition, as Commissioner Lee has pointed out, of how to treat these increased.
That's true,
homes.
but the problem I see is in trying to nail down very specific criterion. One size doesn't fit all. And as Commissioner Harrison pointed out with regard to this particular project, while it may end up fair-sized, there are a number of homes in the area that are within that size range. But because of the way it is designed and how it was done, it doesn't have that feel of going to something huge. But that doesn't necessarily apply to every project. So how do you define something that has, we do see this all the time, and each one is different. And the issue is that each one has to be reviewed on an individual basis, given the particular circumstances. So, in any case, this project is the one that's before us right now. And we have a motion, we have a second.
I have a
Do we have
question on
further
what
discussion?
Mr.
Yes.
Mueller said. The 1,200, where are you measuring that against? There's 2,000 between the smallest and this property, and almost 2,000 between the rest of them.
The 1,200 square feet is a requirement within the municipal code. So no matter what size the existing structure is, if the proposal is more than 1,200 square foot addition, that will trigger this review. And so all the comments are actually pretty on point. Getting back to that conversation or that train of thought, if it's under that 1,200 square feet, it doesn't go to ARP, it doesn't go through this discretionary review process. So there is, to your point, Commissioner Mueller, there has been a conscious decision made that at that 1,200 square feet or 20% of the existing structure, you've now significantly added to it that it should trigger this more in-depth review, looked at on a case-by-case basis, vetted through our architectural review panel, and as was pointed out by Vice Chair Harrison, scale can differ greatly based on the design. So you can have two structures of the same square foot proposed to be 4,000 square feet, but one box may look much different than a different design that is more architecturally compatible with the neighborhood, has additional changes within the plane, et cetera. So all of those are built into the concept of scale and compatibility.
All right, thank you. Anything
I
further?
just have a comment. It's kind of why the community has us. You know, and policy is set up so that,
Is that a blessing or a curse?
well, you know, I use this phrase all the time, everybody's right and nobody's wrong, now what? And on whose dime and whose time usually. So at this point, you know, this is, in this instance, the final check, and it's important that we consider all these aspects as you're bringing them up. And it's facing us, I think, in having to set up objective standards in order to deal with, you know, I guess the critique of what the state mandates are of all cities at this point in dealing with their housing issues. So in a way, we got a privilege because we have us, and we have the curse, which is, you know, that we have us. So anyway, I think it's wise to consider all the things as you bring it up and as the discussion went. But we have a purpose. This is a good thing.
Yep. Thank you.
Let's vote.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor of directing staff to prepare a resolution for approval on this project, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Then congratulations. This will be prepared for approval at our next meeting. Thank you. All right, moving on, we have future agenda items and reports. We have the director's report.
Yes, thank you. So speaking of future meetings, the next meeting unfortunately will be canceled. Well, not unfortunately, but for the purpose of getting this resolution back, because that meeting is scheduled for July 4th, which is a national holiday, so that meeting will be canceled. That means this meeting will adjourn to the second meeting in July on July 18th. Couple of projects that we do have trending for July 18th. There was the previous application for a new home on Calabasas that was continued to a date certain on July 18th. Assuming they resubmit all their plans in time, then we plan on having that coming back on July 18th. If they don't, then we will simply continue that and pull it from that agenda, and we'll renotice that project. We also have a conditional use permit trending for July 18th for a new restaurant along Calabasas Road, replacing an existing restaurant, but they're requesting a conditional use permit for alcohol sales, which is fairly common and typical amongst newer restaurants in the area. So that's what we have trending for July 18th, and then a couple new single-family residents after that in August. The other future agenda items that I just want to bring up, and this actually stems from City Council meeting last night. If anyone was watching the meeting, you're aware of it already. If not, you can go back and watch the meeting or go to the agenda and take a look at it. But one of the items that the council has directed planning staff to move forward on is an ordinance to add to our existing Measure O open space protection. So the proposed ordinance that was reviewed by, I don't want to say proposed, a draft ordinance, not ready for adoption, but a draft ordinance was looked at by the council last night, and that draft ordinance would add a definition for development within open space and restricting, and by defining development to include such activities as grading, installation of drainage features, et cetera. So the purpose of that ordinance is to shore up Measure O. And that ordinance will start the formal process with the planning division. Part of that process will also include looking at existing properties that are in the open space resource protected land use designation and how those properties should be rezoned to a more appropriate designation. As a very quick example, the Calabasas Lake, for example, is in the OSRP land use designation, and an ordinance like that would restrict anything occurring on the Calabasas Lake, including putting up a camera for security purposes. So what we have to look at is changing that land use designation to something that's more appropriate and equitable for that particular property. And there's others that we're looking at as well. All of that will move forward. It's all been discussed on the agenda item. We're going to move forward with workshops with those property owners that may be affected by the ordinance, and then eventually come to a public hearing with the Planning Commission, probably in September, October. The City Council also directed staff yesterday to prepare an ordinance to update the sign section of the municipal code to allow for digital kiosks. And these digital kiosks would be specific to larger shopping centers and include security camera with a live feed to the sheriff's station. So currently our municipal code does not allow for any form of digital or flashing signage. And the purpose of this ordinance, as requested by the council, is to open up the opportunity for some of the larger shopping centers to have these digital kiosks that do include advertising. So there's a component of that would assist the shopping center, but in exchange for that, it would have a live feed to the sheriff's station to enhance security around the city. There have been previous workshops, not by the planning department, but by other departments within the city, talking about the concerns with regards to retail theft and issues that have been happening at the shopping centers. So the purpose of this digital kiosk is to actually bolster some of the security efforts that the city has been taking. That will likely come back and start a public hearing process again later this year. So just wanted to keep the commission aware of what's coming forward. Both of those items, like I mentioned, were discussed last night at City Council.
What's a digital kiosk? Is it like a regular kiosk, but there's some?
Imagine with our neighbors right next door, they've got these kiosks that are out there that are
Yes.
static kiosks, so they
Yes.
replace those. So a digital would be basically that, but a digital screen that can change on a regular basis.
Oh, I see.
Times Square.
Got it. But the shape or the whatever is similar.
Roughly, yeah. I mean,
Okay, I get
it
it.
might have to be a little bit larger to accommodate the equipment
Okay,
and
I
screens.
just didn't know the terminology yet. Okay.
Yeah, or like when you go to a mall and they have, not as big as they do sometimes, but when you go to a mall and they've got the digital sign that shows you where different parts of where different stores are.
Okay. I'm sorry. Thanks.
Can I ask
All
a
right.
question?
Sure.
Did that idea or that request start at the city council, or is that something from an outside source, a builder, developer, shopping center?
This request came to the department as a future agenda item from the council back in April. And a lot of it was stemming from conversations that they've been having with the sheriff's department on how to increase security. So this was one of those options that the council was interested in. And then last night, because they requested for that to be returned on a future agenda item back in April, last night we brought the discussion back to the council to get better direction, and that was the direction that they gave staff.
All right, terrific. Thank you. Do we have any announcements?
Well, I do have one.
Yes.
Not so much announcement, it's a report. So I read in the Times that the air quality regulators are going to force us to switch to electric for everything, heating, air conditioning, pool heaters, all that. So, and I've been advocating this for years, but it's going to be happening whether we like it or not. We're going to have to change our municipal code and comply, which I think is a good thing.
And I have something as well.
All right, yes.
I had an opportunity this morning to listen to the mayor of Thousand Oaks give a presentation about things that they have been working on, many of the same issues that we're facing here in Calabasas. But they hadn't updated their general plan since 1970, and they've been a city since 1964. So their new general plan is projected out to 2045. So that's kind of a horizon of our westerly neighbor on the 101 corridor. And that has a lot of implications, as you can well imagine. And they actually have city-owned property that they are using to help satisfy their housing affordability commitments, and they're building 30 modular housing units on property they own near a CVS pharmacy and next to a shopping center out there. And I intend to actually explore that with the city, well, with the mayor of the city of Thousand Oaks, to see if there are some ways that they are addressing issues that we're facing that might be helpful to us. And that was actually at the board meeting of the Future Foundation, if I've mentioned that before, the Conejo Las Virgenes Future Foundation. And they are dealing with how to project forward what the future is for their namesake. I mean, literally the Future Foundation. So as we've talked about it kind of loosely in the past, I think it'd be great for us to actually think about a horizon that we're looking at. If theirs is 2045 and we're using our general plan, which has a horizon of 2030, it would be, I think, well advised to consider the issues that are facing them, because they're probably going to be facing us as well, if they aren't already, as we all feel. Just to let you know.
Thank you. Anything further? All right, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. Hearing no objections, we stand adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.